Greetings from Ari Mas Talks with Amit Vats. Today, I have with me an author who's also an expert in energy and sustainability strategies focused on economic gains. Pleasure to have Mr. Alok Raj Gupta, who's also the founder and CEO of Envecologic, a young energy and sustainability think tank, advisory and training firm. Welcome, Alok, to Ari Mas Talks.
Thank you, Amit, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
You're welcome. Alok, India is at the crossroads of economic growth and is playing a key role in averting the climate crisis. In order to perform well in both areas, we cannot make do with slow incremental progress. But we need disruptive technologies and scale up adoption as drivers. So, are there technologies to support India's sustainable development ambitions in India?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. First of all, um, I would just like to reiterate and highlight the fact that I think never before in the history has India experienced being at this juncture wherein there is pressure as well as need to make significant progress, on both fronts, right? On one end, we need to observe climate change as a crisis and need to do something about it because India is a large nation and our emissions were the third largest carbon emitters in the world after US and China. And we've also tried to exhibit some kind of environmental leadership, right? Prime Minister Mr. Modi has also exhibited a very impressive leadership, and we have complied to the Paris Agreement, and we have had a very impressive targets that we have set for ourselves and goals. So that's on one end. On the other end, in terms of needs, India has to grow in order to cater to the growing demands of its own people, and energy is extremely crucial. So it's not just a question of increasing renewable energy, but it's large. The bigger question is in just producing more and more power. And if you just put things in perspective, renewable dependence on renewable energy is just an obvious path ahead because it's cheaper. So sometimes just say that just don't go by the virtues of renewable energy just because it's green in nature. Make it so competitive that it makes economic sense for people to just go for that, right? And start investing more and more there. Having said that, do we have enough technologies? Yes, we do. And I guess on technological front, the kind of disruptions that we are seeing is absolutely incredible. Of course, wind and solar have been around. We're very, very familiar, and there have been large-scale projects already. But besides that, even to enhance them further, we are seeing even more advanced and sophisticated solar technologies, right? From monocrystalline to polycrystalline to how should I, some other examples are concentrated solar power, so on and so forth. So just in case of solar, and how digital technologies are even enhancing, monitoring and so on and so forth. So technologies are there. Uh, we have been seeing how electric vehicles, for example, or hydrogen now are really coming forward. So we have to really look at it. There are plenty of options. We need to do is evaluate, see what's going to work in our context the most, and that's where the caveat is very important. That okay, uh, there's no dearth of technologies in front of us on the table, but we just don't have to blindly copy the West or other countries. We need to see what's going to work in our country, given our situations, given our resource constraints, etc.
So, Alok, just adding on to that, does the current ecosystem give us hope that clean technology is no distant future for India?
Yes, absolutely, and especially what we've been witnessing since 2010 and further, how things got accelerated 2014 onwards, after Prime Minister and the current regime kind of completely took the our renewable energy targets to another level. With 175 gigawatt of goal setting that we did, and after that we saw how the ecosystem was aligning itself, be it the financial sector, be it the investors, be it the private players. So everybody was aligning, right? And we saw that things were getting accelerated. So we've definitely seen a little bit of trailer. We have definitely seen a little bit of result on ground that things can potentially get accelerated. And if you see the kind of progress we have made altogether in the last 7-8 years has been extremely impressive. Although there are two sides to the coins, right? I mean, we can't just be happy with what we've achieved, but we also have to see things that we have not achieved that we could have achieved, right? So there's definitely some insights and some pointers that I'd like to share, later in the interview. But what we have definitely achieved gives me particularly enough hope that we've got the capability, we've got the know-how, and we've got enough resources. The only question is how well we are using those resources, and what kind of policy ecosystem we are creating to really capture and exploit that opportunity. Because I think India is better placed than many other countries, especially the West, to exploit this, because we don't need to go back and fix things retrospectively, right? Because we're still at that stage of development, right, wherein we need to construct new plants. We need to construct new power plants, for example, or we still need more automobiles on roads. So instead of taking many vehicles off road, or in terms of shutting down many power plants or thermal power plants, we still have new capacity to build. Now that new capacity could be renewable, and that's the crux of sustainable development.
All right, I understand, Alok. So, to summarize, there has to be a balance which has to be created, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So, you said we have the capability, we have every possible thing. Then where lies the problem? Why aren't we guys going as aggressively as we should, like, our neighboring country, China, or other European nations?
That's a very good question, Amit. And I guess if I can make an attempt to really address this question, I think that answer could be a game changer. That could really put India, like, if we can really adhere to those few points, right? But easier said than done, because there's not just one problem. The challenges are multifaceted, and I don't know who to blame. It's just that it's work in progress. But we need to evolve faster than we are, right? Because the challenges are not just intrinsic to the system. It's all, some challenges are also external, where we don't have any control. For example, the pandemic. So let me get back to the intrinsic challenges where we can definitely maneuver and kind of do something about those things. So one of the first challenges is, do we have enough money to finance these big projects? Because as many of your viewers must have learned from this book called "Will the Planet Notice?" Written by the economist. I think Mr. Wagner. He's an American and extremely well placed as an economist, an environmental and energy economist, to comment on the issues. And he said that it's a very legitimate question whether we need to go ground up or or top down, or bottom up. We sometimes say that switching off lights will save energy. We should just do these things. These are good practices, right? And of course, it will make a difference. But where we stand right now, we can't help but notice that there is a law called 80-20 principle, wherein 20% of the factors or sources are responsible for 80% of pollution. So while 80% of people at the bottom of the pyramid may be making a lot of efforts, but that the result may not be as per the expectation. So we need to focus. So what I'm trying to say is that more than focusing on small little renewable energy productions, we need to focus on utility scale productions, at least at this stage. But do we have enough money to fund those utility scale power plant, solar plants or wind plants or wind farms? Perhaps not. And unfortunately, this focus, there's this reason why I kind of I'm focusing on this and spelling out this as a first factor, because a lot of focus has not really gone on financing aspect of it. People think that there are government programs running and government has a lot of money. Unfortunately, government does not have a lot of money. Government can get things initiated. Government can maybe create a policy framework, but you do need private sector investment. Banks need to come in. You need investors who are really serious about it. You need various financial instruments that will make things more feasible, right? But uh, things have not really kind of catered to the demand. Um, so the kind of targets that we have set, India needs investment to something to the tune of more than $200 billion. You know, um, and a big problem has been this gets coupled with other challenges such as uh, India trying to promote domestic manufacturers of solar panels, for example. Now, India's dependence on China's solar panels or imported solar panels, where China is obviously the main exporter, has been almost 80 to 85% now. Earlier it was 90%. Now it's
True.
85 and down to 80. You must be aware of that. So, and then what we're trying to do is we're trying to make imports more expensive so that that goes in favor of the domestic manufacturers, which is at best not more than 10% right now. So, what we need to have in sight is that we can't achieve two goals at the same time. Quite possible that, okay, don't worry about it. Let's import as much as possible from China. If they're okay, if that suits our financials, let's reach a threshold level, and then we'll try to focus on the next aspect, which is promoting the domestic manufacturers. What's happening right now is we are not able to achieve either. And because 80% to 85% projects depend on imports from China, for example, and the government has increased tariffs and duties there in order to disincentivize imports and promote the domestic manufacturing. Domestic capacity has not come at par yet, and there's a long way to go in that context. And that is translating into absolutely squeezed margins um, for operators and promoters. That's a huge disincentive for them. When they don't have enough margins, they're not in a position to give the original investors enough hope that they will have enough ROI. And therefore, what's really happening is that there is this discouragement as such. Optically, we know that India is doing great and there's huge scope and a lot of, we have this 175 target and we are growing aggressively. But really, the undercurrent, suggests that there is a little bit of discouragement on this context, which could be a game changer if we created, every 1% increase in margin can have a huge ripple effect from the operator to developer to the first line investors, right? And that could really accelerate things. And that's a really big point that I'm trying to make here, is that every 1%, 2%, 3% improvement in margins can really encourage and accelerate and encourage participation from private sectors, and that can really complement the government in a big way. So that's I think in this example I've also shared how policy framework operates, right? So the policy needs to be very clear on prioritizing whether you want to increase India's solar capacity, or whether you want to focus on increasing the domestic manufacturing, because unfortunately you can't do multiple things at the same time in certain
So is there
respects.
a confusion between the policy? Is there still a confusion between the policy, whether it's favoring the Indian manufacturers or it is
Yes.
discriminating towards the foreign investors?
Yes.
So
Yes. That's a good question.
What as Alok you would want from the government then, or from the policymakers?
There are two, three things that I would like. Okay. And something that I've spelled out on many occasions, and some of these things have been taken up seriously, especially after a couple of important pieces that I wrote for ORF, the Observers Research Foundation, and some of these issues were also taken up in, when some of these policy briefs were submitted to the Ministry of Renewable Energy, MNRE. So two, three things that I would like to bring to focus here. Uh, first, this policy confusion that we were talking about in terms of priority needs to be very, very clear. Just the goodwill or just the righteousness will not help. In the sense that our own manufacturers should be promoted. Well, if I think it's a very important thing, but at the same time, you have to really have a plan of action in the sense that, okay, if we have to promote our domestic manufacturers, then we are setting aside, let's say, 20,000 crores just to promote maybe the MSME or anybody who's manufacturing wafer, these solar wafers, for example. So we don't see that in place at the moment. There are definitely on paper provisions to incentivize this, but really, it does not translate into effective. And that we have seen in the sense that that percentage contribution has not gone more than 10 to 12% in the last few years, right? So that's clearly not working, and that's also creating a lot of disruptions for large-scale projects. So when I look at the cost benefit, we are doing more of we are losing more than we are gaining at this point of time. So therefore, the policy clarity has to be there. A silver lining is that government does listen to these issues and tries to fix it. Like, for example, the taxation on electric vehicles were too high, which were progressively brought down by the FAME regime, which FAME, the FAME regime, which was kind of led by Mr. Gadkari. So, we were seeing that, whenever the industry was kind of bringing some issues and challenges to the government, and they were trying to align, but that process needs to be much faster. The second thing is that there is very little focus on value chain optimization in the country. What we tend to do is we understand this is the process and we just jump on the bandwagon and we just start doing it, right? Import karo, China say ye karo, invest karo, land acquisition and do this. But we often forget that the supply chain is complex and there could be, sub-optimization at some point, which need to be brought to the focus, right? How's the manufacturing happening? Where are we creating a lot of value? Are there leakages in the entire value chain? Because, Amit, we were talking about encouraging more and more private investors and operators and developers, and every percentage increase can make so much difference, right? And I'm telling you that value chain optimization in India is underlooked. And if we focus on that, we could actually improve up to even 5%, 8%, 10%. And that could be a game changer without change. This is like ceteris paribus. We don't have to change, like in the same context, same policy framework, same everything, just value chain optimization so that we can ease up the pressure, like 5%. And there is the way we operate in India, I think it's very suboptimal. So it's suboptimal in some context. The biggest suboptimality comes because of small scale investments and small size of the projects. So if you compare our ticket size, our project size and scale with, let's say, European power project or clean tech project, because a typical European project would have a lot of huge investment, they completely exploit the economies of scale benefits, right? And therefore the costs come down and all the benefits that's associated with it. Because our investment, our current financial instruments and all, they're not very competitive. And they also need long-term investment. So they can't look at equity. They have to focus on debt. And we have been slow in terms of financial, innovative financial instruments. Like, for example, IREDA managed to come up with Masala Bond, which was very, very innovative.
Yeah.
But then look at the percentage contribution of that investment, right? So what we really need to do is incentivize things at every level, not in a righteous way, but in a practical way, so that investors are encouraged to invest more, because at the end of the day, after absorbing so much of risk, they need an ROI, right? Once we have enough pool of money in the system, then we can expect the scale, the scale of the projects to go up, and then we can even start exploiting the economies of scale benefits. The smaller projects will not help at this stage for us. I mean, the focus has to be on large scale solar parks, for example, and big
Uh,
solar farms.
Alok,
Yeah.
just tell me one thing. Are incentives the only way to gain investors into the system?
The most important way, because they are not in the business for altruistic reasons, right? They need an
Mm.
ROI, and if they don't see ROI from this sector, they will go to other sectors right now. For like quite possible that right now for many investors, healthcare for the next 10 years is extremely lucrative, given the scenario. So these investment opportunities are competing with each other, and especially in a country like India, where every sector is competing very closely for investment. E-commerce, for example, right? E-commerce, logistics, healthcare. So all these sectors are competing very, very closely. And if renewable energy is not able to present itself with lucrative returns, then I'm sorry, but we won't be able to
True.
attract big investors. And right now, we need big investors. One thing I feel very strongly, keeping in sight the 2 points that I made initially, India needs to grow, and India also needs to focus on climate change crisis, because India is a very important stakeholder. Now, in order to address these two things, we cannot afford to grow at a slow pace or incrementally. Right now, we need disruptions, right? So, and in order to effectively translate these disruptions into reality, we need money, and that's where investors are going to play a very important role. But in the same breath, I would say the policy ecosystem will have to be very competitive, like very, very practical.
So, Alok, running out of time, I have few more queries
Sure,
which I would want to just bring up to you.
sure.
So, what as an organization and as an expert are you doing to add on the Envision Clean Energy dream?
I'm glad you asked that question, and part of my answer lies in the name of the organization. Our organization is called Envecologic, which is a synthesis of environment and economic logic. So my mantra is that it's great that you love nature, you love environment, you love solar and wind, but if you want to sustain investments, if you want to sustain these activities and scale them up, we need to make these options competitive and economically feasible, right? Because just to give you a quick example, a company's CSR effort will probably plant 100 trees,
Mm.
200 trees. But if a CSR has a shared value wherein there's some element which is also impacting the bottom line of the company in a positive manner, it will give them more reasons to plant 10,000, maybe 1 million trees every year, right? So we don't want a short-lived effort. So there we need the economics to work really well. And therefore, our organization's focus is to bring in the economic elements to the fore, and tell people that, okay, don't worry about or don't feel pressured because you have to go solar, but just look at the fact that solar is cheaper, and this is how it's going to translate into improvements in your bottom line and top line. So that's really important. So then what we do is we kind of do a lot of economic analysis, and wherever there are hurdles, we see how economic decision making economic strategies can help them make more competitive these clean technology solutions, and how can adoption be faster. Because a lot of technologies, electric vehicles, now we have to see that how automotive industry is doing in India right now. And so it's just because EVs are great, should we make it mandatory for everybody to kind of just switch? So so then what I try to do is that create economic incentives so that there is a win-win for everybody, right? And there are a lot of hidden issues which need to be optimized, and that's where a lot of value chain economics come into play as well. A quick, and a very relevant point that I would like to make here in the context of electric vehicles is that there's so much hullabaloo around electric vehicles, but have you thought about, um, is there enough lithium ion supply to manufacture so much of batteries that would
Absolutely.
meet our targets until 2025 or 2030, whatever targets that we've set. I won't name the company, but I was talking to a CXO of the second largest resource miner, lithium miner of the world, and the person said that it's very impressive that the way that the kind of targets India is setting, And we were having kind of an informal sort of chat together, and uh, uh, the person brought a very important point. 50% of lithium exploited today is used for other applications, and the kind of and not just EVs, right? And the kind of requirement India alone will have would be more than nearing 100% of lithium mining in the world. So that's a very blatant mismatch. So what is the plan? We can't just throw numbers that okay, 70% or 50% or 30% of our vehicles will. So that's where practical decision making, practical goal setting, and value chain vision is very important.
Probably by then we'll start speaking about hydrogen then, Alok.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the next big thing which people are already trying to exploit across. But anyways,
Yes.
nevertheless, so there are a couple of other things also which I had in mind for you was that, see, your organization, you have an organization, you've been doing a lot of work. We've spoken about, the kind of money what India would require
Right.
to actually go ahead with its dreams of clean energy, green energy. So, as an organization, what kind of opportunities you are providing to the youngsters who would be looking forward to join the green sector? Are there any skilling opportunities for the manpower also with the organization?
Yes, yes. In fact, uh, that's a very important segment of what we do, because in order to accelerate the growth, we need people at every stage with every kind of skill set who will really contribute to the sector. Um, at this stage, we have collaborations and MOUs with at least 6 big universities in India, and 2 outside India, who are completely focused on sustainability and energy and renewable energy technologies. Um, so we work with the students to give them, first of all, project experiences, internship opportunities. We do master classes with them, and all our training programs. So we have very specified training programs that is focused on giving the students an idea as to what's really going on outside the academics, right? Uh, it's because our sector is evolving every day, and what I've really seen is that after 2 years of let's say a master's or an academic program, when an individual comes out, what they had learned and the way they had perceived the things and what they actually see, uh, there's a little bit of gap and mismatch. So it's important for them to give a sense of what's going on outside, what are the priorities, how at what pace we are moving, so that uh, going beyond the training that they're receiving from the institution, they're also able to make themselves market ready. Um, a quick example would be until about 5 6 years ago, let's say since 2007 8 until about 2014, clean development mechanism, carbon trading was big, right? And I knew of a lot of institutions who rolled out courses and a lot of big programs on those, but it was all done away with. I mean, nobody cared about, because the prices came down, and prices nosedived, so nobody cared about carbon credits anymore. So it's important that our training programs help these young people understand really well what's going on, how the market is evolving, and how they can prioritize the skill set that they have to focus on. Um, uh, for example, many people felt that uh, carbon footprint reporting or sustainability reporting or ESG reporting was, well, it's a very boring task. Anybody, it's just about like greenwashing and things like that. But one has to understand that in the US today, some of the big companies, when they release their report, when their sustainability report, it has an impact. Like the next day, the New York Stock
Yeah, yeah. The
Exchange,
prices they go
the
down. Yeah,
prices
yeah.
they go up and down, right? So that is the level of impact sustainability strategies and implementing all those things can have. So the importance is going up now. Now sustainability is not just about CSR. Sustainability has to become more mainstream in strategic decision making of the companies, right? So our focus areas is definitely helping students identify from different backgrounds. Um, uh, so we have, like, this is interesting, right? So we have sustainability and training programs for, let's say, an economic student, as well as a mechanical engineering student, right? So that a
Right.
mechanically engineering student can understand where the opportunity areas are, right? Where can they do more and more R&D and projects, so that that's where they can focus on energy savings and energy efficiency. And an economic student can focus on understanding the key issues so that they can see where the economic optimization can take place. So it's really important for help the students understand what the problem is, because a theoretical problem, problem treatment and a practical problem treatment are two different things.
So
And
it's just Alok, so it's just the training what is being imparted by your organization or the likes of organizations by you, or you also help people to get to a certain level of a job because of that.
well, in our case, since we are a research, advisory, and thought leadership and training
No, because
organization,
since you
when
are
we
connected with a lot of organizations,
right,
industries across, so youngsters are always looking. Now, this is an industry which is growing by leaps and bounds. The
yeah,
kind of investment over the years which will happen over here would require a lot of skilled manpower. But the point
yeah.
is, all those people who are getting trained, are they being getting invested also somewhere or not? How do we get to know about that?
Right. At least, I mean, since our focus is not on getting them placed elsewhere, because I mean, there are other specialized organizations and companies who does that placement work. But what we definitely do is the training is also focused on making them market ready. But beyond that, in our own capacity, we have rolled out a program wherein we retain some students. Every year, we hire a number of interns for the short-term period as well as the long-term period. And at the same time, for most of our programs, we identify the top X percentage of participants and we give them project experience. So we kind of put them on a project and we assign a role to them, so that and that's really focused on, let's say they've received training on X issue, the project is aligned accordingly, so that they know, so that things are not just theoretical for them. And we have these project cycles from 3 months to up to 8 to 10 months. So students are involved for that kind of tenure, so that they are able to get oriented in a significant and a manner, right? So at least in our capacity, we are able to work at least with a couple of dozen students every year at this point.
Great, great, great. Thank you, Alok. Alok, we are, paucity of time right now, but I have one last question to
Sure,
you.
sure.
Okay. And that is, when Alok is not part of the clean green energy, what exactly is he doing? What's his stress buster? What is he passionate about?
Okay, that's this question leads to a little bit of a heartburn, because I love to travel.
So
And
you've been
last
enclosed, you've been trapped these
Oh,
days, is it?
absolutely, absolutely. Because what traveling does to me is incredible, right? It's just being able to explore new things. But some couple of other things that has managed to capture my attention in the last 1.5 years is cooking. So I have started cooking new dishes. So I love to cook. I love to eat.
Ah, that's
Right.
nice.
So these are the things which kind of help me bust my stress.
Great, great. Thank you, Alok. So, I think everybody at in the family should be savoring all the nice dishes what you're making these days.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Great, great. So thank you so much for the share, and definitely it was worth in discussion what we had today. There's a
Sure.
lot of opportunity in India for the renewable sector, for the entrepreneurs looking forward to get into it.
Yeah.
Obviously, the policies have to, obviously, the way, as we speak, there are a lot of things which are happening in terms of policies also. And we surely look forward that the policies are a little more favorable towards what the government has envisioned for a period of time now.
Right, right. I mean, if
Right.
I could just slip in one point here, is that what we essentially discussed, the focus was how we can do better, right? How we can
Yeah.
accelerate. But if I say look at things in general, this sector of clean technology, renewable energy, has an extremely bright future. So definitely the young workforce which is graduating these days, they don't need to feel disheartened because of this I would say temporary pandemic situation. But the future is definitely very, very positive. A lot of opportunities coming in there, because if you see, all the sectors will ultimately depend on renewable energy and sustainability strategies. So because of this level of application and importance, the future looks extremely bright.
Thanks for the share, Alok. So, Alok, we definitely look forward to getting in touch with you again and to have some more candid discussions. Yeah, you stay safe and stay secure, and we definitely look forward for the curve to come down also, so that the travel ban is no more there and you can just travel like a free bird. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was a pleasure talking to you, Amit, and to all your viewers and to all your team. Everybody stay safe. Take care.
Thanks. Thanks,
Yeah.
Alok.